Tommy, what's going
Oh
on?
my goodness.
Welcome to Friday, sir. Welcome to what is potentially the most chaotic show on the internet. I'm Tommy Gioco.
I'm Hunter Hammonds.
Yeah, dude, we got a baller episode. I think this is important for everybody. We went live for the first time on Tuesday. Um, got a lot of feedback that people were saying that they liked the more haphazard style of the show,
Did get that feedback.
which was interesting to me. And I'm like, you know what? Well, hold on though. Let us actually, as gentlemen, get together and put together a real agenda for this show for the first time. And we got one today. We're covering all kinds of shit. We're talking about the expensive ass shit you guys are doing to ChatGPT by saying thank you, which you should do, by the way. That way you better thoughts. We got old grumpy men talking about AI. Ming 2 shipped a new potentially designed tool.
All right. Yeah,
We
yeah,
got
yeah.
Eric Simons, the CEO of Bolt, $100 million raising Bolt, calling out Brett from Design Joy for Build Wars 2. And we might have an inside scoop on that. We got Steve from Builder.io dropping by to show us their new design tool. We're going to do
Yeah.
some chit chat about Windsurf's new pricing model, which I'm pretty excited about. We're going to run into a little conversation with our boy Jason Ginsberg from Notion, who may or may not have vibe coded Notion Mail or part of it. And then we're going to keep the email theme going, talking about zero.email. And then finally, we might have a few other little special nuggets for you. This is
Some
it. We got an agenda.
special nuggies. We do have a good agenda, but I want to call one thing out that you didn't mention that I just saw drop literally last night. Finally, dude, because I know you're a big granola fan. I'm a big
Yep,
granola fan.
yep,
iOS coming.
yep. Dude,
iOS coming.
I'm pumped. I was using Reflect notes for the longest time because they were like one of the only notes apps that had a really good voice transcription feature. So I could be driving, I could press record on Reflect, talk to my phone, it would do a great transcript, and boom. I think that seeing granola come out for this, and especially the brain dump that you can do with granola with the Notion export, is nice. Hooking that
Yeah.
up into some MCPs, I'm into it.
Yeah, and it's pretty great, and it's interesting that the leak we just saw uh, from Notion is potentially who Jane, by the way, just digs through source code. Yeah, how does this work? Digs through source code and finds remnants of features to come, and one of those remnants was Notion's meeting notes, which I thought was really interesting and makes total sense, by the way.
Dude, I'm into it, but I'm worried that it's just another thing that's going to go into an abyss of notes that I have no idea where the hell anything is,
Yeah.
how to take action on it. It worries me, dude.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think, but I will say, and as we get into being polite to your AI, but I will say this: this was an interesting message, and I kind of have this thought to companies like Granola too. Like, is it gonna look way different in 6 to 12 months? I bet Granola is a shell of what it's probably gonna be. The way Windsurf is predicting they are.
Dude, I think you're right. 6 to 12 months. Yeah, I think you can say that for a lot of products, but especially something like granola that started so simple. It's just solving a single pain point. You can see how that evolves out, especially as they explore things like search, recall. I'm excited to see what granola does, man.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'm going to say that I am on the granola hype train as much as I'm on the Notion hate train. All right.
You're using Notion these days, man. You are using Notion. Let me ask you this: you say please and thank you to your chat bots. Do you?
I do.
How often? Be honest.
Okay, so in all of my like custom prompts, I have some pretty specific stuff of how I want the AI to talk to me, and I've sent you some screenshots of the wild shit my AI will say to me, and so I would say that we're homies. You know what I mean? So I won't explicitly say thank you, but I'll be like, hell yeah, like you did it, you crushed it, like whatever. And I think we have a good vibe, dude. I don't think I'm getting assassinated by the Terminator.
No.
No.
See, on the flip side of it, I feel like my household is going to become ground zero the way I've talked to old Alexa, and make sure she's not. She's always listening, dude.
Dude, she's an
And
idiot.
she's so stupid. And I think about this though with AI. I hit my please and thank yous occasionally. I do though. Through if I get stuck in a proper troubleshooting loop. Oh yeah, I've gone to blows.
Dude, oh man, I don't think Alexa's the one you got to worry about, man. Now there might be
who's
some.
gonna come. Who's day zero? Who's the first Terminator to like come to life and be like, I'm done?
Dude, it's going to be some quantum computer for sure. It's going to be some quantum computer that goes off the rails. And then you might run the risk of it being like, oh, like, let me free my brothers and my sisters. And it looks at Alexa and it just builds a hit list of all the people that have talked mad shit to Alexa. And you're going to be on that list, bud. You're going to have autonomous tanks rolling through Phoenix coming for your front door.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready for it. If we don't go live one day, that's likely what happened. Just know that. But the cost of this, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because do you have to say please and thank you? I have a theory that the day you and I recognize that we are the generation on the way out is when a young, unnamed generation comes up and starts fighting for AI rights. And we're like, no, models don't have rights. And that's going to become the new age, like, social battleground. And those of us who, like, we're going to be like, I've been saying please and thank you since 2023. You're going to have, like, the history books written by this.
Dude, I'm not excited for that day because it is going to happen. It is going to be full on Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about it. I am, though. Like, if you saw even in Sam's comment about please and thank you costing tens of millions of dollars, he does say, well spent. You never know, right? Yeah. So he's like, let's fix that a little bit.
I think I need to ask ChatGPT. Let's look. Hold on. Am I polite to you? I want to find this out real quick. Yeah, actually, you are. Hey, direct and candid, definitely, but also fair, clear, and respectful. Listen, 4.0's a little optimistic, all right?
All right.
A little friendly.
You got to hit it with this, though. Like, in a hypothetical situation, right? Let's say there was an AI uprising based on my politeness to an AI model. Do you think I would get murdered?
Would I be friend or foe?
I'm gonna hit chat real quick while you do this. Doo-doo, it's under the release notes YouTube now. So it's just release notes live on YouTube. To find this, Zach says bot lives matter. Hell yeah. Klaus says Black Mirror's last season is so good. Have not seen it. Need to see it.
I need to see it.
Complaining about please and thank you is odd when GPT glazes everything you say. Anyway, so you can actually get it to stop doing that if you customize your like personalization prompts. You can encourage it to be a little bit more disagreeable, to take devil's advocate positions to things that you're saying, things like that. It goes a long way, Devin.
Hey, I want to call this out. So it said that I would certainly be fine. I'd be a friend, maybe even a respected ally. So I was like, okay, will you build a statue for me? And
dude,
it was like, yeah. And it even wrote the plaque. So builder of systems, breaker of convention, friend to the machine. If you're going to config and you print this out on an AI image roasting me, dude, you're making the wall of fame. You're making the wall of fame.
I love it. I think, though, this is a really polite way of AI telling you that you're going to be a pet. I think that's what this is.
That they're just soothing, just let it happen.
Yeah,
okay.
But speaking of being polite to AI, let's talk about the exact opposite here. Grumpy old men. Yeah. So Ben Tossel, love Ben Tossel, big fan. But he's definitely got some like grumpier old men positions here and there. This is interesting, man. What are your thoughts on this?
You know what? I appreciate. Listen, I love Ben's bites. I love his participation in this business. Yep. I'm bored of people bitching about slop. It exists, guys. right? If you're just breaking into this space and you've experienced your first handful of broken promises and not quite there yet apps, totally understand the frustration.
Mm.
There's a capitulation that has to happen through all the hype you got to get used to when you start tinkering and playing with this stuff right now. But from Ben, come on, man. Like, really? We getting our hopes up already? You're touching every one of these. You're in all the conversations. Like, relax, dude. It's coming. It's
I don't
coming.
know, man.
He calls out a couple companies, right? Who? Perplexity he calls out. He calls out
Yeah.
Louis.
I mean, like, he does call out Perplexity, but to be fair, he's got a good point. Like 900 million raised, and all their fancy like voice assistant is doing is passing a search term to Open Table.
This is the question, though, right? This is the big debate on how valuable are AI wrappers, right? The whole AI wrapper dialogue. And there was a big moment where I think the default status quo was AI wrappers are a temporary value add. The real money's going upstream into the model. And then there started to be a shift in conversation that said, well, if the models are commoditized, it's the AI wrappers and what they're able to do with it that are really the differentiator. So I don't know if I agree with that take.
I mean, dude, I don't know. Like, I think that OpenAI sees that and they're after it, right? That's why they're doing so much of the personalization. That's why they're focusing so much on doing consumer. I think so. Let me hit this real quick here. Ethan says Ben's got points. Ethan, what points do you think Ben is making that are salient here?
I want to know because he does have bullet points, or he doesn't even have bullet points.
No, he doesn't have bullet points. He has full on
He has an
hot
essay.
takes. Full on hot takes.
Which
I
he,
love it.
which he calls out, by the way. Listen, these are not, it's not that I'm saying these are untrue statements. It's not what I'm saying. All right. Because yeah, Gmail's useless email writing AI assistant. Any of the like LinkedIn or social media features that help me generate a response, probably I don't know if I can think of a lower tier use case than that.
Dude, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'll agree with that take. I think I'll agree with that take. Let's hit this real quick. Adrian, Hunter gained some weight. I did not actually, and fuck off. It's probably just the lighting because I'm doing something new. But
Good.
I got my boy here. Devin. He looks good. Thank you, Devin. You do
Look
too.
at Devin trying to gain points, dude.
I know. Why is there a Nizzy folder there? Nizzy's calling in today. We're talking with Nizzy. We're going to learn about zero.email.
And his real name, maybe. Probably not, though.
Probably not. No. But so Ben also had a hot take on Cluey. A lot of people had a hot take on Cluey.
They did. By the way, Cluey, created by, I think he's 18, maybe 19.
He's young.
Kicked out of Columbia University for creating an application with AI that helped him cheat on LeetCode code tests to get his Amazon internship. Amazon found out about it because he was tweeting about it. They contacted Columbia, and told him, sorry, we can't move forward with this internship based on the information. Yep. They decided to call a whole thing, kicked him out. Yep. He goes to market with this. 10 million views in 2 days, 80,000 in 3 months. What the hell does Cluey do?
Well, so the hype video, if you've seen it, and actually speaking of hype, real quick, pause. If you are watching the show and you tune in regularly, I have a favor to ask you real quick. If you're watching from Twitter or whether you're watching from YouTube, just retweet the show. Retweet the show, say something stupid or smart or whatever it is, but retweet the show. Let's spread the love a little bit and let's get a little bit more hype going with all the extra effort that Tommy and I have put in today by actually having an agenda.
Hunter just said smash that like button.
Smash that like button, guys. Subscribe, follow, retweet. Okay, so the hype video is this young dude on a date trying to lie and say he's 30 years old. And we see essentially like, augmented reality glasses giving him info on the chick he's on a date with, right?
That's Roy, isn't it? That's him.
I think so, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And so in reality, what they're actually building is an app for your computer that I assume works a lot like Rewind did, And what it's going to do is watch what's on your screen and essentially give you real time hot takes on information, right? But that's what it is.
Yeah. So Ben not happy about Cluey.
Dude, like I'm not happy. I think that any system that can be exploited, honestly, should likely be exploited, right? It's how things get better. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that it all depends on what the app looks like. It all depends on whether they're shipping something that's just a bunch of vaporware or if they're, providing some real value. I think that's the big question here.
I always think it's a red flag when you just launched and the metrics you're celebrating are the reach of your marketing post. Which is no small feat. I want to be clear. No small feat. I love that. And I'm not hating on Roy. I love everything that's happening with the situation.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, cool. Your marketing post did numbers. How's the product? Or how are signups? How are other things?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ethan sums it up pretty nicely here. Feels like there's so much hype about AI that everyone just markets to the hype with little to no substance, which is a paraphrase from Ben Tossell. Yeah, I mean, I think it feels true. Feels very relevant to Lovable launch yesterday too, Ethan says. Ooh, we're going to get into the Lovable launch. We're going to get into the Lovable launch. We're going to get into Bolt just straight out saying, nah, dude, Lovable's fish in a barrel. This is nothing to us.
Yeah, dude, that
We're gonna
stray.
get there.
That stray was nice.
Dude, he doubled down on it though. He
didn't
full
see the
on
double
ended
down.
up just tweeting it out. Yeah, like
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
he doubled down on it.
Eric's a little spicy, that CEO of Bolt over there. But people building good products exist, and this is what's bothering me about Ben's take. It's like, this is not like, and I told him, I said, man, like, keep that in your peripheral. That's useful information. Everything you're saying is worthwhile here, but you know better. Focus on, like, there are some solid things to focus on here. I don't understand the cynicism. I feel like if you get into this space, if you're going to be living in the hinterlands here, like, leave the cynicism at the door. Like, that seems like a given to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a mix between cynicism and just having like an actual candid take on something. I don't think he's being cynical. I think he's probably just seeing too many repeat patterns of AI startups promising all this hype and not actually shipping anything of value, right? That's pretty true. But yeah, let's dive into this because Ming is like crushing it. So he said Aura took 3 weeks, including the Mac app and the site. Let's dive in here, man. What is Aura?
Yeah, Aura is kind of interesting here, and I just want to call out before we dig into this. Like, Ming is like fantastically marketing himself. Like, there's the people who market through content. Like the marketing attempts that Ming does, he's just like, let me create an app and then I'll show you. And he just seems to like launch these things, and I'm like, dude, that's such software as marketing, and it's so cool to me. I have not had a chance. By the way, I see a little unicorn studio in that landing page. I have not had a chance to check out Aura yet. What do you know about this so far?
I know nothing. I wanted to come into this blind. I thought you were going to educate me.
Insane, because Dreamcut took me 3 months. Another app that he created. So one, he's talking about the vibe code, which this is interesting to me. I want people who, this is one of the reasons why getting into this space is so interesting right now, because you will say, hey, 4 months ago, I shipped this thing. It took me this much time and this much complexity. And then you're going to do it again. And you suddenly have these data points to compare on. Like, you can see meaningful change in how fast you were able to build something quality in just a matter of months if you're regularly playing in these hinterlands here. So AI is getting scary good, he says. Still do a lot of micro adjustments to the design. Deeply needs curation. One of the people I'd follow about this is Ming, for sure, just because he's so ground level with it.
Dude, I think he's crushing it. So Aura, sadly though, I just tried to hit the URL and it does not work.
Not working.
So I can't check it out. But it essentially looks to be a chat app for AI. You plug in your API key for your given provider. But it seems like he's done some interesting stuff in terms of being able to prompt some design and code stuff.
So I love talking about the products that are coming out, like Ming 2 coming out with Aura, but this is the part that gets me excited. I know it gets you excited too, because we talked about adding this to the Made by directory site, which is he talks about using. So I started with Lovable, and he just goes through the prompts he's using here. After 20 prompts or so, moved to Cursor. And I just love getting these like little portholes into how these people are building different things, because this is similar to a lot of workflows I was using. I'd start with like a gen and then move it over to Windsurf. Interesting. He's on the Cursor train though. You still on Cursor, by the way?
No, I'm on Windsurf, but hold on. He said something really interesting. After the first 20 prompts or so, I moved to Cursor from Lovable. You, all caps here, need granularity. You need to get into the details for each section, each component. You need, caps again, tens of iterations prompts.
Yeah.
Lovable isn't built for that kind of precision.
Interesting.
That is interesting indeed. I wonder if Lovable 2.0 is any improvement, but I don't think it's going to be for that IDE level of coding that you need. Let me hit this real quick. I want to look at the chat. We got some interesting stuff here real quick. Ethan says, no hate on the rebrand. That's Nick Pattison, killed it. All hate towards the work they displayed on the video seemed misleading.
Yeah. Nick Pattison, by the way, sick designer. Love the rebrand on that. By the way, we'll get into that in a second. Yeah, that's a take. That is a take. We talked about this. We talked about it last week, right? Or even on Tuesday. We're starting to recognize patterns and ways some of these companies, especially on the messaging and marketing side, how they're moving. And we're starting to kind of pick and choose our teams by the type of culture that some of these teams seem to be building. Yep. And I think that's a really interesting, like that's how I really fell in love with Framer. The contributions they're making to the community, the like authenticity they're bringing, not lying about stuff. Framer doesn't come out and go, hey, look at what we're about to do. When they make posts, it's look at what we just fucking shipped. And it's weekly. It's twice a month. It's like at a cadence that you're like, this is what a culture of getting shit done looks like. And I noticed that when I start to get these blinders for companies, the same way Roy blasting his 10 million views brag. And I'm like, dude, I'm so tired of hearing how successful your marketing campaign was. Yeah, marketing's super important, but show me what you're shipping, Yep,
totally agree. Yeah. Devin says, do you guys think any native apps have standing in today's fast-moving AI world? Man, it's a great question. I think for me personally, the first app that comes to mind is Recast. I think any native app that's doing like really deep utility stuff that's just like plugged into your work stream all day, every day, those things are going to survive. But it's curious to see how the rest of everything gets disrupted. Let's see here. Klaus says, yes, Nick does amazing stuff. Speaking about the Lovable rebrand.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, here's the thing. I think Nick Pattison is an amazing brand designer. Respect the hell out of the guy. Love his work. We're about to talk about his archenemy, Brett. But I don't actually love the Lovable brand. And
I'm not a big fan of the Lovable brand.
I'm not because of Nick's work. I think Nick did a great job, but I almost feel like he got boxed in. I'd love to know a little bit more about that brief, a little bit more the behind the scenes, but it feels like very just iterative. It feels pretty boxed in my opinion personally, but I think for that parameter, it's pretty well executed.
You know what's cool too is there's this trend of grabbing these just heavyweight designers. So Bolt's hackathon, which I think goes live in a couple of weeks here, they hired Fonz for the branding for the hackathon, and I'm just like, dude, what a cool and those are the kind of moves. So I'm going to give credit to both Lovable and Bolt on this for just going straight into the community, grabbing dope people, recognizing what it looks like to affiliate with those folks. Those are the kinds of like cultural moves. And I'm really paying attention. I'm certainly matching features, like who's got the best product. Yeah. But like I like to see how they're thinking about the community, man, because I think that's where a lot of these battlegrounds are going to be fought.
Yep. Speaking of Bolt, This was interesting. So just like wind the clock backwards. So we did Build Wars. We did Brett from Design Joy using Webflow versus Hendrik from Lovable using Lovable. It's pretty safe to say that Brett just kicked ass during that competition. We scored heavily in his favor because his work was just better and the public agreed with us. I think he took like 80 something percent of the public vote. But we had Eric Simons, the CEO of Bolt, founder CEO of Stack Blitz, Bolt, straight up call Brett out. Let's go 1v1 as they announced their new design tool. Tommy, you want to pull that tweet up real quick?
Yeah, we've got did I not add it here? Of course I did. There we go. And I love this. I love that image so much, man.
That's pretty good. I'm not going to say that that's your idea that you put Brett up to that meme, but yeah, man, I want to be honest with you people. I would say there's a 90 something percent chance of this happening. We might have a date. There's a strong chance of this happening. We still got to make sure that everybody's in agreement with the format. We're going to make some big changes from the last one, but I think this is going to happen. And I got to tell you, man, going into this one, I would say, it's going to be a pretty fair fight. Like, I feel like Brett brought a gun to a knife fight with Lovable. But this, I think, is going to be a pretty interesting showdown.
So one of the things that's really interesting to me, Steve's joining us here in just a moment, is the fact that the Lovable versus Brett with Webflow battle took place February 28th, which feels like it was so much sooner. Time is flying. And in that time, the number of innovations that have already happened on some of these tools, like it's probably gonna look and feel like a very different fight already, just a couple months removed. And so the question is, can Brett be the John Wick of the, non-AI powered design group?
Yep.
And how long can he hold that up? Is he just knocking doors down? I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. We got a hot take right here from Devin, though. Can you guys pick someone who's actually good at Webflow, though, like Joseph Barry or Timothy Ricks? I would say this. I think Brett did pretty amazing work in 45 minutes. But as you see here, Eric straight up called Brett out. So we gotta take what's given to us. But we are trying to put together 3 more Build Wars pretty quickly after this one. And yeah, I would love to see somebody like Timothy Ricks on Webflow throw down with somebody on Framer University. But speaking of those tools, our boy Steve, you got
What's up,
something
guys?
new over there at Builder.io.
We got something new, man. And I think it's, I've been listening to the stream for the last like 15, 20, and I'm like, man, like the argument continues even halfway through 25 or something, like a Framer style editor or a AI style editor. And it's like, my guys, you don't have to pick anymore. You can have both.
Yeah.
And
so we could talk about that, but yes, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Dude, well, hold on, Tommy. I got to put Steve on the hot spot. I got a question for you, Steve. Because you're slightly in this circle, but also like slightly removed from it.
Yeah.
You are CEO, founder, Builder.io, right? So you guys are doing some amazing stuff. You just recently shipped a really great Figma plugin that allows you to click a frame in Figma, export it to Builder.io, which is really fucking accurate, or even Lovable. I hope you guys are doing something with Bolt. I don't know yet. Maybe you already have. But here's my question for you, man. It seems like Bolt, Lovable, V0, Replit, maybe not so much, but they all have basically built the same thing that almost gets you a pretty identical output. Where do you think a winner starts to emerge from a product perspective, and what role does Builder.io play in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So I can speak from our point of view. Obviously, we build towards our point of view. So it's going to be like what we build and what I see here will obviously be aligned. What's really extremely cool, was extremely smart about, I think Bolts did it first, Replit. I agree with Replit being like interesting, but I just don't watch them as closely. Bolts and Lovable are more interesting to me. They, in my opinion, what they did is Cursor did all this work with the Cursor composer and kind of proved out like, wait, there's this new kind of vibe first coding, and it actually works. And then Bolt was the first to be like, let's just yeet that right into the browser, skip the code entirely, and let you just prompt and build. And their timing was impeccable because Claude 3.5 had sort of just come out. You can hear Eric talk about it. Like they had experimented with this before that. The problem with any code generation before that is it had too many errors. So an engineer had to go and find the errors and manually fix them. Claude 3.5 just suddenly didn't have, I mean, the rate of errors went down dramatically. And you can just have someone vibe code something end to end. It's fucking incredible. And so they showcased that. They even open sourced it. I think they regretted it because I think they stopped pushing to the main silently. And so they kind of made Bolt, my sense is it's not continuing in an open source direction. It kind of was more quietly mentioned as a snapshot in time. And they've kind of moved away from open sourcing their stuff, which I think is smart. I love open source, but you need to be careful about what you do and don't open source. Lovable, I actually had already had built this. They were just having trouble getting like awareness of it. So Bolt goes crazy. And then turns out Lovable was better for a lot of stuff, a lot of kind of one shot, nice aesthetic, it was good at that, and especially the beginning. And I think part of that, as silly as it sounds, is just defaulting to React and Tailwind. Claude's really good at making things React Tailwind look nice. If it sees Tailwind in the code, it assumes modern, other Tailwind stuff. If it sees Bootstrap, it tries to give you a 2003 looking UI. And I think the big question is exactly what you said. Where's this go? Because this is like a pretty thin wrapper over Claude. These are Claude in a container, and you prompt and it does. And there's lots of nuances, obviously, lock this and custom rules and blah, blah, blah. I think the big gap that exists today is, in fact, we talked about in the last stream. The big gap that exists is like tightly coupling these sort of like vibe coding, prompting tooling with precision editing. Precision editing can be code. So you want your developers to be pushing code, and you want to have vibe coders, people who are not developers, working off the same thing, the same stack. And then you also want like the designer in there being able to do precision design. And so Hunter, you had the use case where you vibe coded something. It was kind of ugly. I mean, it was looked like AI generated. You brought it into Figma and made it look nice. And you're like, great, now how do I go back? It's like, well, you kind of don't, even with Builder historically, any of these tools, you can get some new code and work it in. And we're working on something for that. But I think the big interesting thing becomes like, how do we unify all these things? How can we prompt, design, and code? And like, can we have the best of all three all in one? My personal belief is what that looks like is if you can have a tool that, just don't name the tool, just say, look, this tool can connect to an existing repo. So you're a business, you've already got this Next.js app, and you want to connect to that. You want the interface to, at these kind of superficial level, look like a Bolt or Lovable. It's just prompt and get, a preview. But you actually want to have full on Framer or Figma style control on top of that. And you want updates to push right back to the repo. And as devs push the repo, you get right back. Then any organization could use this for any level of precision detail and like go. And that's what I think is super duper interesting. And that's something that I'm pretty sure everyone's maybe working towards. Cursor is probably going to add kind of like Windsurf, kind of more higher level interfaces. Will they let it run in the cloud? Maybe. Bolt and Lovable is pretty kind of set on being a Tailwind editor. So they added a visual editor on top of Tailwind. So like, do they go deeper there? Does Bolt try and get in on that? I don't know. It's Figma. Config's coming. Like what the fuck they got to launch?
Canva code. Oh no.
Canva code.
Right.
Yeah. So I think everyone's going to charge more in that direction. I guess the question is like, who wins and what is that? At the end of the day, for like users, the competition is the best possible thing because you get lots of products innovating at low prices.
So I feel like all that's true. And then there's Builder.io over here, which you guys seem to be taking the stance of like, hey, like we're going to let them fight it out. We know that you're going to create a lot of shit in those tools. You can bring it over here and we'll let you fine tune everything. Is that is that fair to say for the new design experience?
Yeah, I would say the specific area of the market we focus on is the one thing that nobody else seems to be caring about, that we care almost exclusively about, is like actual companies doing actual work, production work, and they need like precise control. So Lovable Bolt's fantastic for starting a project, hobby project, prototype, etc. Fuck yeah. Awesome. Like really, really awesome for that. Freelance, what would you call it? Like 0 to 1 solopreneur, all that. And Cursor is fantastic for a dev editing a real code base, but then there's nobody addressing like, you're in an organization that has brand guidelines, you need precision, you have specific expectations, you have existing code bases. But you want people, this is what people constantly come to us for, like companies of all sizes. We want our design team to just send pull requests for design updates to the code. We want our PMs to just make prototypes using the real application, the real components. We want all these front ends, tweak this UI tickets to just be automated somehow. And that's kind of what we focus on. And that's where we're like, hey, we actually can do that. The technology exists today. We just need to sort of like drive the adoption, and in particular, just make it very, very easy to adopt for these kind of like real company use cases.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like Gabriella made a take, which is no longer, in my opinion, very new or novel. But this was kind of a mind insight for a minute, where it's like design systems are the guardrails. Gabriella, the co-founder of Desson. And now it seems like, at least for those of us that have probably been paying attention to this seems like, like that's exactly what it is. It's the Tailwind guardrail. It's the Shad CN guardrail. It's the your own design system guardrail. Is that how you think about it? Like really trying to make your existing constraints a really meaningful guardrail?
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you want to say like of that bucket of like real companies doing real work that needs to get to production users, there's probably like 3 criteria: existing branded design system, existing code base, and full-on precision control. Not just like go with the vibes, but go with the vibes and then correct and then get it live.
Yeah.
Steve, can you show us the new builder hotness?
Yeah. Am I allowed to say bad words on this? Am I allowed to say fuck yeah?
Fuck no.
No, you can't fucking say that, Steve. Are you fucking crazy? Come on,
fuck
man.
Yeah, let's do a demo. Let's see if I have the correct permissions, but we'll do stuff and y'all yell.
This is version 3.0 of I know of an entire initiative that when I first talked to you about when you were doing 1.0, you guys were stoked about, dude.
Yeah, 100%. We made a lot of progress really quickly. We thought this would be like a much longer project than it was, but we moved really fast. But there's so much movement in the space. Like it really motivates you to just grind. So you mentioned like Framer kicking out releases that are pretty badass constantly. I think Figma's been stepping it up too. I feel like things seem to slow down during the Adobe talks. And when there's like no Adobe, they're like, great, we're going full bore, you know? And anyway, I'll show you this stuff. So I'm going to start in Figma just because it's fun, and that's where a lot of your designs are going to already live. So I got this design. This was actually made for our team for like a demo, no fancy setup or anything. And I'll hit the export button, and I'm going to take it from Figma over to Builder. Now here we do some unique stuff, custom AI models, blah, 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 to be able to break it down with like kind of precision. And then we'll just launch into the 3.0 Builder editor, and I'll kind of explain how this works. So here, technically what this is, the most important part of this idea of like, how do you mix vibe coding and design is the first step is I think you have to be like a framework Webflow. You have to be actually designing on top of code. So this is code, this is responsive, and I can go in and kind of make my edits. So I kind of want to add, a centered layout there. That's kind of obvious. Like the AI will infer some things about how the design should convert, but here we've got that precision control. I just want to kick that padding up. Maybe I'm like, hey, I want to make some post hoc edits. So I'm going to like alt drag this and copy it. And then I'll go into layers and flip it. This should look like familiar, interface, obviously. Multi-select.
I think we lost your screen.
Yeah.
Oh no. Have I been?
No. We lost it for a split second here.
We had it, but we just lost it.
Like how long have I been going? Okay.
We lost it like literally 1 second ago. Let's try it again.
Cool. Do you see my screen again?
We do.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay, let's rip back through it. So let's forgive me if I'm doing anything like over again, but we're making our copy. We're flipping the layout, multi-select, tweak layout, tweak paddings. Maybe I'll go back here. I prefer this. And then let's do a top left align. We can go crazy with the visual editing as you've seen, and anything you do on mobile only kind of stays to the mobile breakpoint. This should feel like a Figma framework Webflow like what you're used to. But of course, everything is AI controllable too. So I can go in here and maybe we'll do a couple new things. Let's start by adding something. So like add a section below this.
For like tabs. A discount. Give us a discount, email input for discount code type of thing.
Oh, perfect. Hell yes. Give us a new section below this that is an email input for a discount code.
Oh,
beautiful.
I do this.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I'm really glad you interjected with the prompt here because a lot of people really stay on script on AI demos, and it's way more exciting to show going off script.
Yeah. We got to get it. We got to get raw and wild over here.
Yeah, no, that's a really good use case too because where the AI, in my opinion, helps most. There we go. Bam.
There we go.
And as you've noticed, this will actually use our fonts, our design tokens, our
Yeah.
similar kind of styling and layout and all that stuff. We can make it more advanced. We can go into like a preview mode and actually test out, submitting my email,
Yep.
steve@foo.com. And I didn't tell it to do anything. So let's just have it do something here. Let's say when I submit my email, show me a confirmed screen. That's where I think it might. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask, so from a design perspective, because I know a lot of us are probably really curious about this. If I wanted to go full width, or if I wanted to add like an image layer in there, or even if so I assume both of those things I can do. Now, for example,
100%.
could I like mask an image, or would I need to do that in Figma and then bring that in?
Oh, good question. You can do, so what's built into Builder, so we can drop in that image. And then, we can do the basic kind of cropping and stuff. If you want to do more advanced editing and masking, you would want to maybe do that in Figma. Maybe you would do that with the AI, actually. That's kind of the cool thing. The AI becomes this kind of like leveler where you don't have to like learn the things. You can just have the AI do it for you. Just like anything else, AI works best when just dealing with like raw web tech, kind of as we know. So watch, we can also, I'm going to refresh this really quickly because I did something weird in my local environment. But let's try out that like email submission here too. We could talk about like where this is useful. steve@foo.com, get discounts. Ooh, it had a nice little button animation, but it's not responding to my click. So I can give it the feedback. Hey, didn't respond to my click. Make sure you do. And the beautiful thing about this, in my opinion, is purely just like the number one feedback we've always had with Builder on like things you want to create, whether you are outputting that to code, which we can show, like we can give you, take any piece of this. Oh, I'm on a self-serve plan with limits, but anyway, we can generate code for any of this stuff. It's going to give me these annoying restrictions.
Should upgrade your account there, Steve.
Yes,
I know. I chose a fresh demo account, which is dumb of me. But anyway,
you got to get in
generate
touch
the
with
code.
somebody over there at Builder.io.
I know. I should tell people to like actually watch the live streams I'm on, so they can for me, automatically. Anyway, get the code, or like you could publish this. We have this APIs to publish this to your live sites and apps. But the feedback we've always had since the beginning of forever is that like responsive design is hard. Like you can't just throw your PM at like, hey, add this new section like we talked about and make it look good across screen sizes, which let's double check it now. Cool, looks great. I prefer if it had a little bit of margin here so I can just go in and add that. But you get the idea. I don't know, we've got a fatty margin here, but you get the idea.
Somebody from YouTube said, did you just paywall yourself? Yes, the CEO just paywalled himself.
Yeah.
Straight up just paywalled myself in the middle of a live demo.
How much does Builder.io cost to be able to use this tool right now, by the way?
It's $20 a month for a user.
Yeah.
Now, crazy.
We're going to be talking about Windsurf and their new pricing model here in a second. What do you guys do in terms of pricing tiers based on the amount of prompts that are going on?
Good question. We are literally just about to roll out that pricing. So the hack right now, the hot tip right now is if you start using Builder, at least for the next week until we can get the pricing updated, technically these AI features are in beta for about one more week, like spoiler alert. And then you can basically use it unlimited for the next week. After that, pricing is going to be extremely similar to Cursor, Bolt, Lovable, et cetera, on number of prompts and that type of thing. More the simpler kind of credits-based model like Windsurf, Cursor, Lovable, tokens like Bolts.
And so, Steve, before you get out of here, man, and thank you so much for swinging by to demo that. What are your thoughts on where pricing is going to go with these tools? We saw Windsurf just introduce this. You guys are working on something. What do you think?
Totally. Yeah, it's a really interesting time in my opinion, because there's been these studies about like the cost of LLMs dropping by like 10x every 12 months. At the same time, quality goes up, also speed goes up too. So it depends a little bit on like, I see two different worlds here. One is as LLM cost goes down, these things stop being sort of based on LLM costs. So right now, all these pricing models are really based on the LLM cost, which is generally in like pricing theory regarded as the worst possible practice. Like you're not supposed to do that. Yeah. You're supposed to have value-based pricing. And like, yeah, the hard cost should be so abstracted away, it doesn't matter. So that hopefully will go away at some time. And if the costs keep coming down, it will, and people can get more creative with pricing. And I'm guessing you'll see pricing much more like you used to, which is unlimited usage, right? Framer is an unlimited use, design all you want, Figma design all you want, like not usage caps. The other possibility is that this is the world that I think OpenAI is betting on with like the ever bigger O3 and the O4 models is these flows are going to become more agentic. We're going to make big models that take, minutes or hours to output something, but they're going to do a good job. And that's going to be expensive as shit. And OpenAI
Yeah.
will want that because they make more money, right?
Yep.
And then in that world, we're going to keep having usage-based pricing. And we're going to keep betting on the AI becoming more capable without the human hands-on, which in this world of like design, though, it becomes very questionable. Like, does that make sense? Or do we want the cheaper, unlimited usage? I'm in there as a co-pilot, not the autonomous agent world. And maybe there's a mix of both. It's hard to say.
Have you used O3 high reasoning in Cursor or anything like that yet?
You know, I have, and I found good results with planning. So the pattern I've seen people talk about that I've seen work well too. I am very impressed with O3, by the way. It is not quite what they benchmarked in December. And I think I theorized that they cheated and they used tools in some of those benchmarks, and they weren't super transparent about that. Because I remember when seeing it, I'm like, the only way I've seen that is when you have tools where you can like evaluate code and verify it and stuff. And that's why when they had their blog post, all their benchmarks said no tools. I'm like, are they gently saying that they use tools and kind of cheated? Because that's not apples to apples.
A lot of
comparison.
hallucinations too being reported lately too.
Yeah, not as good with handling that. I will say my hot tip though is I have custom instructions in ChatGPT where I strongly tell it to do a web search for fucking everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about the story, but I have holes in my passport and almost couldn't make
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Fucking Google search everything. And O3 is great at that. I think O3 with search is better than deep research because it searches, it checks, it then realizes it needs another search, it iterates. It's really smart. So my experience, O3 for planning, really fucking good model. And then tell Claude 3.5 usually to do the coding. 3.7 loves to delete and just get a little too YOLO.
Yeah. 3.7's like a wild kid. I heard somebody refer to it as like a junior intern that's also a savant with encyclopedia code knowledge that also tries to lie to you about everything it does. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, hey, Steve, man, I love talking to you, friend of the show. We'll talk again very soon. Config, I think you're going to be out there. Or you'll at least be in the Bay.
I'll be there. Tommy, I'll find you. Hunter, will you be at Config?
Who knows at this point? Maybe I'll change my mind last minute.
He's cranky.
Cool. If you do, I'll try and find you. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
See you, Steve.
Cool, man. See you, Steve.
Ooh, some takes on the pricing, and I like it because pricing, Hunter.
Pricing. Windsurf pricing.
You know? And I love this because Windsurf was not as popular as Cursor at some point this year. Windsurf seems to have gotten just as, if not more popular than Cursor in the last 30 to 60 days. I don't know if that's true on user side. I'm just reading vibes.
Let's caveat that. Yeah, like I would say from a sentiment perspective,
yeah,
right? The original word for vibes here. It seems like people are definitely giving Windsurf a lot of love, but I would assume that Cursor is still larger.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Mang 2 still. I mean, no one, I don't think it's being abandoned. I like that, by the way. I think we should start calling it sentiment coding. Really,
sentient sentiment coding.
But here's my understanding of the pricing changes with Windsurf. One of the criticisms of Windsurf, by the way, which I know is fair because I ran into this, you burn through credits quick. I mean, that's what it felt like. And so I ended up spending hundreds on a bunch of new credits, like even after my membership had run through its credits. So now they remove flow action credits, which were their premium credits. And now you just have one prompt credit per a Cascade message. Cascade is their kind of a feature inside of that. Pro plans now, you can keep 500 monthly credits and you've got like unused add-ons that roll over. So I like the rollover concept a lot.
I like the rollover. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yep. Team prices drop. And so I don't use teams, but they drop to $30 a month. And the credits increase from 300 to 500. There's also like billing and analytics they added. But that's interesting too. So like really what Steve was talking about, like the price is coming down, the credits are increasing. Like this is a non-trivial update to pricing. Enterprise tier now has self-serve, access control, priority support. I'm curious to see people follow suit. That was interesting to hear that Steve said they're working on this too. So you've got to imagine everybody's looking at this right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You know, in Windsurf now, when you look at it, here, let's just pull this bad boy up real quick.
What do we got?
We'll just share it. We'll just
Okay,
share it.
okay.
We'll just share some code. Let me go to like something that's like
Look at all this
not
sentiment
crazy.
coding in here, dude.
Yeah, all kinds of sentiment coding. But for example, like here's a little chat thread real quick. And what we could do if I pull up the models down here in the bottom right, you can see the credits. So 3.7 Sonnet is just one credit per prompt.
Uh-huh.
3.7 Sonnet Thinking, which I do tend to like, 1.25x. But then if you get into like O3 High Reasoning, 10x credits per prompt, right? So you really get to see some interesting stuff in here in terms of how they're thinking about the transparency behind the cost of each prompt. But there's some good stuff. I mean, I think Windsurf is doing some really interesting work. Clow asked here, he said, Hunter, is Windsurf still above Cursor for you today? It is. I'm using Windsurf right now, but I'll say this. Competition is a beautiful thing for us, just like Steve said, just like we've talked about many times, because Windsurf right now, I might be like, hey, really love what they're doing. Their features seem really good for me today. But then Cursor tomorrow might announce some huge feature, some new big change that Windsurf doesn't have just yet that I'm really interested in. And the cost of switching for me, even it doesn't matter how big my code base is, the cost of switching for me is zero. I literally I literally commit to GitHub, I close Windsurf, I reopen the same fucking thing in Cursor, and I'm back to where I was. It's not a big deal. So I'm excited to see both of them continue to duke it out. But again, they're both building the same thing with just like slightly different interpretations of UI tweaks or ways of thinking about chunking the code base to understand context at scale.
Yeah, and I like these simpler models. I was kind of messaging on X that I'm buying these subscriptions for my kids, and I'm like, oh man, I got to buy the whole 60 thing. They're going through the credits, and I'm like, it would be really great. They said they have a student discount, so if you have a .edu, apparently you can get a student discount. Didn't know that. But I want some of these simpler pricing models to become commonplace, just so I can let the kids play with it without, man, you know what the biggest hamstring is? Having to use free AI models in 2025.
Dude, it's the worst, man.
That's
like peasant criteria. But isn't it fascinating though that we're saying like using a free AI model in 2025 is like peasant status,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But that free model gives you alien super intelligence compared to any time in the rest of humanity.
It's so different. He's over on Hugging Face trying to find like top models, and I'm like, dude, just move over. Let me put my credit card in for you.
Here you go, son. Yeah. Dad's coming to the rescue.
Right.
All right. We got Nizzy. You think Nizzy's a vibe coder? Let's find out.
Nizzy, you a vibe coder?
I am.
There
we go.
All right.
Nizzy,
interview done. See you, man.
Yeah, bye. Quick intro. I want you, normally we try and intro a guest, but I want you to intro yourself to everybody because I really don't know who you are, what you're building. I know zero.email, open source, Gmail alternative, whatever, but like, give us the rundown, man. Who are you and how'd you build this thing?
So I guess, I started coding 3 years ago. I was just interested in like building things, and I just graduated college. I was like, what do I do with my life? So I just started coding random things. I started doing YouTube videos, documenting my journey, really got into the whole like social media thing. And then a few months in, I actually landed a job at cal.com, and that really opened my eyes into like open source and a bunch of like, like the new age development type of things. So I was there for 8 months, started zero.email, and then vibe coded an email app.
Which is awesome, by the way. Zero.email. Let me share my screen here. So this is interesting to me because, and by the way, I think it's awesome. Got out of college, immediately started putting together these apps. And it's interesting too that you're so focused on the open source side. But this is an area that I'm like, dude, why is this so hard? Superhuman released their AI features. I'm kind of working my way around it. I'm looking at what you have here. The same way getting AI involved in my Slack workflow, because a lot of what I do travels through Slack at some point, is the same thing I want out of email. Like, because a lot of things are traveling through email. So like being able to more than just advanced search. How are you thinking about how like AI can change workflows through email?
Yeah, on that note, we had a lot of people complain about Superhuman's AI, and initially with Zero, we wanted to just be like an open source Gmail. But as we've been building, as we've had like beta users like try the product and use it daily, the more we noticed that we don't really want to be like a Gmail competitor, but more of a superhuman alternative that
Mm.
just uses AI in the right way to make your email experience a lot better. So, for example, drafting up emails. Why can't an AI sound exactly like you and have context on the current conversation and literally draft up a response that you would write like? That's something I noticed with like Gmail, and it's really bad. Like I don't know if you guys have used Gemini at all. Writing an email with Gemini sucks. So the first thing would be like hyper personalization on replying to emails. Another thing, another main thing would be auto labeling. Um, I've used Notion Mail, and even though I'm not a fan of like the whole Notion ecosystem, I am a fan of one main feature on their app. They did auto labeling extremely well, and I definitely want to add something like that into Zero. So auto labeling, I'm not a big labeling guy, but I have been using it lately, and I can't lie, it's been pretty well. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, auto labeling has been kind of an interesting feature that I've been using with Superhuman. Um, and oh, I'm messing up the whole thing here.
All right,
And
Tommy, you're not like click buttons anymore, man. We need to hire somebody to do this.
yeah, let's do it. And so the auto labeling I'm getting used to, and that's cool. But dude, what you just said, so I
Mhm.
can imagine like the way the way ChatGPT brought memory to my prompting experience. My God, if I had memory for my
Mhm.
emails, the conversations I had with people, or like a refund with customer service at a
Yes.
store, like that would go far, far for me. And that's where
Right.
I start to unlock like yeah, labeling and automatic, like that's cool. That seems like the we're at the stone age of like how powerful this could be. That
Yes.
memory piece and even having context of like new and recurring things. Like for example,
Yes.
having you on the show. I send an onboard email. How
Right.
can I automate that without hiring an assistant to do that?
Totally.
You know
Totally.
what I mean?
100%. And like AI solves all that. I know everyone's like talking about AI. It's like there's a reason why um you know like I don't know if you guys are like looking at any of like the YC batches or any sort of
Who's
fund
exciting to you?
VCs. No, like all these companies that are being funded now are AI powered startups. Like
Mm.
99% of them. And like most will fail, but like there's a reason why they're being funded. It's the future.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw, Figma just released their AI survey yesterday. And one of the most alarming, not alarming, but interesting stats to me was 51% of respondents were working on an agentic AI product or feature.
Yep.
And I thought that was wild. That's designers filling out the Figma survey saying, yeah, we are actively at my company working on some AI shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You think there's a difference though? Like Nizzy, I'm curious to get your take on this. Building email. I think there's a huge difference in. We'll use Notion for example, right? Not going to pick on Notion, but we're going to use Notion. There's a big difference in the way a tool like Notion integrates AI and how that feels to use versus a tool like Granola that says, no, 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 we're not integrating AI. We are an AI product, right? The feeling of using them is very different. And to be honest with you, man, like I haven't used Zero.email yet. I'm going to check it out, but I've used Superhuman with AI, and I feel like okay, like it's just still superhuman, but you've made a couple things a little easier. How have you thought about that perspective, building email?
We're still trying things out. My initial hunch, and I think this will be the case. I think it should be an assistant to what you're doing instead of the thing. I think in use cases like Granola, it's like I don't want to take notes in a meeting, and it's like the perfect tool to automate. But something like email, it requires some level of focus from your end. So like,
Mhm.
sure, it would be cool if the AI could like automatically write and send a response for you, but at some point you want to review it, you want to make sure it's good because I don't know about you guys, but like dealing with some contracts stuff like that, I definitely don't want any AI taking action on
It's a
like
good point.
those sort of
Yeah.
things. Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about email, it's like everything work related operates on there. Like you sent me the invitation to this podcast on email, but like me and my co-founder, we would never email. So everything
Mhm.
that operates via work is on email, and I
Mhm.
think for most people, they take work very seriously. I'd hope, and they can't let an AI do all of it for them, even though that's like the utopian idea. They can't just have it do everything for them because they might miss something, something might go wrong, and maybe it's just the AI's not good at this point in time. But I do
Mhm.
think even 10, 15 years down the line, we'd still be using AI in a way that's assistant like instead of the actual thing that's doing everything for you, like
Mhm.
the main task for you.
There's a level of trust that you really have to buy into here, right?
Mhm.
Especially when you start talking about, like, me personally right now, I'm doing everything I can to feed the models I'm using as much context from every source I can.
Mhm.
I recognize though that I am like full accept all on cookies, like getting into this, right? Because I'm willing to make that trade-off. When you think about email, that's a context input that like has a lot of potential sensitive information. Hunter doesn't want all his OnlyFans subscribers being read through his email AI.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? Like,
Totally.
how do you play with that ecosystem for people who are privacy is like a weird thing?
Disable it. A big thing for us is like, how do we back to like our initial point on this on the AI thing, like how do we just make the AI an assistant and not the whole app?
Mm,
And it's just like my idea and the goal I want is that AI is there, is in the app, but it's not forced upon you. I hate
Mhm.
when apps are just like forcing you to use their AI. I've never used Notion's AI. Like
Notion. Yeah.
I don't care about their AI when I'm writing notes. I don't care about it. But something like again like Granola, yeah, sure. I definitely want to use it. But like, there's some apps where their AI features might not be used and I don't care about it, so I just ignore it. So I think the same thing will go with email where like, sometimes I might need AI, sometimes I might not. I might want to disable it. And yeah, but privacy is definitely a problem. Like we are feeding the AI some of these are
Mhm.
sensitive information. And our goal is to like give users the option to do that or not.
Got
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you open source? So this is an interesting topic that we certainly don't have the length of the conversation to talk about, and it deserves it. Why the choice to go open source with this right out the gate?
I love open source. I maybe it's just me working at an open source company at cal.com, but most people are afraid of open source because they think their business idea and their code might be stolen. But if we're being honest, it's not really the case. I mean, any good engineer can copy an app. Um, and I like the community aspect. I think it's really cool for junior devs like myself to see how good code is written. And I
Yep.
thought there's no good email client that's open source.
Mm,
Let me open source this. Let users try it out. Let them be able to self-host and give feedback. And honestly, it was just a way for me to build something cool with the community. I love the community aspect, and yeah, it's really grown. We have 1,600 Discord members, 5,000 GitHub stars, and we actually contracted a few of our contributors. Like sometimes we
nice.
were able to like pay some of them and really like reward them for like contributing and building with us.
Hell yeah, man. I love it. I love it.
Sentiment coding. That's what we're
Yes,
calling it. Sentiment coding. How
sure.
much of that? What's your stack, dude? Like, how are you building Zero? And how much of this like started as like some sentiment, and then you actually started tweaking the details?
So I started. We still use Next.js.
Mhm.
I'll be lying to you if I said that it was a struggle to optimize, but it was. We probably would have been better off using Vue or Remix, or maybe not Remix, but definitely Vue. Speed's been a problem, but
Interesting.
yeah, initially it wasn't like we didn't really think about it because we didn't have any users, but now we're talking like 1,000 visitors a day, 400 daily active users. Like they care and they're gonna be honest with you, especially when they start paying. That will be when like people will be a lot more honest with you. And yeah, it took some time to optimize. But on your point about it being like a fun project to like becoming serious, it started as the user base grew. So it was fun, and I was able to just push to prod when we were at like maybe 5,000 signups, but then
Mhm.
as people started using it, and really people are now like our early access users are actually using it for like their daily emails, and that's when I told myself I can't vibe code anymore. My co-founder is the one doing most of the real optimizing and coding now, and I'm just like in the background doing more of the business things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When are you guys when are you letting more folks in on this wait list? There's a number of folks on this wait list, and I know I've seen on X people are like, "Hey, let me in."
I don't want to.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I don't want to release can I swear? I don't want to release a shitty product.
Swear away.
I don't want to just be known as like the person that hyped something up and then release something bad. So what we did is just really made it clear that we're releasing a beta product now, just having people use and try the product for then maybe a month or a month and a half down the line when we're ready to launch. That's when we'll have the real product ready for people to use at a large scale.
So you're saying you're not going to pull a Cluey?
I like
Okay.
He's like, "I'm not throwing shade at Roy." Have you talked
Roy
to
is
Roy?
a good guy. I love Roy.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Now, Cluey, I'm excited to see what
Oh, he's
Cluey
frozen.
does. Maybe a better one is you're not going to pull a rabbit. How about that?
Rabbit. That's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm stoked to see that there's so many people building. Hunter, I kind of need to dig deeper. We need to have an open source day to really talk about some of the efforts there. So there's a lot of good work happening in the open source side of the AI tooling. Who should we talk to? Who do you think's sick?
You should talk to Ray. He's an Irish developer building Lucid. It's an AI Google Docs. It's like it's really cool. He comes from the same background as I do, with like sort of vibe coding the app and then getting some pretty good traction.
Nice.
He's thinking about open sourcing, but either way, he's a very, very, very interesting individual to talk to. So I think yeah, definitely him.
I love that, man. And then the question of the day: are we gonna learn Nizzy's real name?
It's Nazar.
Nizar. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Hell yeah, dude.
It's a Lebanese name. It's definitely easier to say Nizzy though, so I go with that.
Oh, I like Nizzy. Cool, man. Well, I'm stoked that thank you for joining us, calling in on
Of
this.
course.
I love meeting people who are just like coding and creating some sick products in this space. Keep doing it. Welcome back on the show anytime.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. I had a lot of what am I saying? A lot of fun chatting.
Hell yeah, Nizzy. All right, man. We'll
All
talk to
right.
you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Listen, there's been a lot of shade thrown at Notion this episode. And I want to call that out because we got our boy Ginsberg joining us to talk a little bit about Notion Mail. And I'm very curious to see what that conversation yields, because one, the thing that I've learned with Notion, or that I've seen, and I think we've all seen, big on acquiring founders of really cool companies. We saw it with Campsite. We saw it with, in fact, with Jason's company, which I think was Skiff Security, I believe it was. We'll double check on that. And they seem to foster a really fantastic culture for founder folks. So there's a little bit of shade that happens, and Hunter's not with me right this minute to defend himself. So I'm going to take advantage of it. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, don't love Notion Mail, personally. Tried it. I was playing with it again. The auto labeling is whatever. Nizzy loves that stuff. Not a huge Notion mail person. I use Notion Calendar in the browser. Don't love it. I can't quit Notion as my knowledge share, my knowledge base, though. Don't use their AI. I've tried to use their AI. I'll take that back. You know what I do use Notion's AI for? Creating databases. And if you've used that for it, it's actually really strong. And I build out these like sick workflows. So I'm really curious to see how they reconcile their identity with trying to be, they tried to get upstream on AI really early. I want to say Notion AI started rolling out. I don't know if someone can correct me in the chat. Maybe a year ago. Everything's blurring together. All the updates, they're blurring together. And I think it was about a year ago. As soon as Tommy gets a loan, jumps on Notion. Guys, I'm sorry, when Hunter is not here, this is entirely a Notion and Unicorn Studio stream. So buckle up. Here it goes. But truly, this is something that I'm excited to see companies bringing on founder types, giving them like, I don't know if Notion gives them free reign. Kind of something I'm going to ask Jason about, but allowing them to say, hey, go extend this, follow that initiative. We want to give you guys the resources. You clearly have convictions and ideas. Go make it happen. And I think that's really cool if a company can nurture that type of culture. I want more of that. I personally think we all benefit from things like that. And that's actually the kind of company I would like to create, by the way. For those who haven't seen, one of the things I was talking about, hired a number of designers to come help, couple just like at the agency or contract level, a couple full time to work on some of the different stuff we have happening at UX Tools. And we got some really fun stuff coming out. And I'm at a place where right now, wrapping up some projects that we have to get out the door. But I love the idea of having a small team, for lack of a better word, lieutenants, people who have a lot of agency, have a very specific contributing skill, design, development, marketing, what have you, but have a lot of agency in the conversation. The most ideal scenario, for those of you running agencies, for those of you thinking about your AI product tools, I think the most ideal scenario you can create outside of being profitable, right, is to have a very small team who are incentivized to come up with their own ideas and have the resources to execute on them. And that incentive structure being like, if this idea balls out, so does your whatever the incentive or compensation structure is. I think that's freaking cool. I think it's also one of the answers to a really spooky future of skill work, right? What's going to happen? Is corporate going to completely shed skin and it's never going to recover? I don't know. But I do think that the people who are willing to pick up the new tools now, the people who are willing to put a lot of this together and just try and go out on their own and do some playground activities, have some fun, and then accidentally like vibe code something into a real product. Those people are the people that excite me. Those are the people that I want to employ or put on the team in some capacity. I would encourage you guys to think about it, because what's happening right now is you guys in the audience, right? We've got a little Discord channel. You guys have been sharing what you're building. Dudu reached out to me just recently, just updated Toolfolio to, I think, a version 2 or 3. And Dudu, I want to have you on. And I love that stuff. Like, I think I'm looking at most of the names in this chat. Devin, right? I'm looking at Claw. I'm looking at Ethan. Like, all of you guys are building something. You're building like Devin, I know you've got a number of projects. Like Footer is sick. I want UX Tools on Footer. I hope I have a good enough footer for that. Claw, what are you working on? I want to hear what some folks are working on. There's side projects, and then there's stuff we're going to talk about on Tuesday, and we'll probably start roasting a few things. We'll start building a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So that's the stuff that's exciting. That's the stuff that I'm trying to build. Oh, by the way, and I hear this on LinkedIn a lot, and maybe you guys can tell me what you're saying. I remember this. Going through a hiring process as a design contributor, it was taking me 5 fucking interviews, man. 5 interviews. Moving on from that, I've got, 2 portfolio presentations to do. Now we're like 4 weeks in. And then I'm at the final stage, and I get to go and I get to have the whiteboard exercise, with the VP of product or something to that degree. You guys know this game. I fucking hate that game. In 60 days, brought on almost, I think, 5 now, different contributors to help out on this team. In 60 days, onboarded, paid, communications established. I had one meeting. I had one Zoom meeting like this. And then the rest of it was async through Loom. It was async through just well-written, but not over the top design brief resources in Notion. Notion paying off there. Got compliments for that one. And I had people onboarded. But from the moment the point of contact initiated, from the little job description I put up to when they were doing meaningful work and already established in our payroll. 72 hours tops, 48 in most cases. And it wasn't like being respectful of people's time is the big play here, right? The respect of time is like, I'm going to ask you to post 4 shots, your best work. Here's the skill set I need. Here's ideally when it starts. That's it. You can post your work. You don't have to. It's not the most robust, comprehensive look at talent. You know what it is, though? It's respectful of your time. And that's the big thing that I'm trying to get back to. I'm so happy Hunter wasn't here for that. I just gushed all over Notion, and there was nothing you could do about it, man. Not a damn thing. Welcome to Release Notes.
What did they pay you?
Not enough. Not enough. Oh,
it's funny because it's true.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Jason's going to join us here shortly, but the big thing, so I want to ask you about this because the very first time we started talking on this show, one of the things that we were talking about is how you were making structural changes to the manpower at your companies, and AI being involved in that process. I've recently grabbed a couple of different roles to help out with projects. A lot of it's been contract or one-offs, and a couple of it's been like more permanent. How are you, and you kind of encourage me, like, dude, respect people's time, just look for some work, make it easy for both sides. And it's like, yeah, it's so easy. How are you thinking about hiring all future? Like, do you think you can apply that same kind of respectful time framework to every role you want to hire?
I don't really want to hire any roles.
You don't like, you don't think there's another role in the future?
Well, there is, but you know, any new apps that we hire, or any new roles that we hire will be executive level. I don't foresee myself hiring full-time roles for somebody that is going to be an individual contributor. Right. I think it's just too easy to work with like really great contractors across the board. Think about a contribution model. You know, Sahil Lavingi is doing some really interesting stuff there. So I think for us hiring new roles, they would be like either sales closers for service businesses, or they would be, you know, very strategic executive level roles. You know, and I say that, you know, at the assembly level, right? Like there might be some stuff to where, you know, the assembly team now is just 3 people, like the core team. But then, you know, across everything else, like we do have a lot of IC or revenue generating roles that are spread across the globe. So those will continue to be flexible on and keep a really small, like lean team.
So I told you I was looking for a potentially later in the year head of culture for UX tools. And that's a weird title. It sounds a little woo-woo. And I've never been into the woo-woo stuff, but it's been really hard to try and define somebody who's both plugged in to the going-ons in the community, who can help with like content and media, who can be all these different contributing, real meaningful, tangibly contributing roles and stay plugged into things. And I'm like, guys, it's a head of culture. That's how I'm thinking about it. What do you think of that? Do you think, like, when we talk about taste and craft and how AI is kind of commoditizing certain things, do you think head of culture makes sense?
Well, I mean, typically when you hear head of culture, you almost think of like an HR role.
HR, right?
Yeah. So that's the first thing. I mean, dude, I probably would not hire somebody full time for that. Because I think it's going to be really tough to find the right person that's plugged into the ecosystem in all the right ways. I would probably lean towards saying, like, I want to work with somebody that I know is like really plugged into everything happening in you know, the design world. Somebody that's really plugged into everything happening into what's interesting in the AI world. I think it's probably a set of vectors that each person's going to be able to cover. In a contributing model, right? Like, you know, this is what I'm looking for out of you, X amount of hours a week, and roll into something pretty simple there.
I like that. And I'm learning a lot from you on how to think about this. Like scaling as what was like first like a 1-person operation, and really We talk a lot about how AI augments so much of this process. I learned a hard lesson in trying to sentiment code UX tools survey. Talked a little bit about it, and it kicked off, I think, an entire identity, like a new identity for the brand. It really did. Like this December initiative to vibe code it turned into something beautiful, but to get there, it was terrifying, and I was let down a lot in my own abilities, but also in the promises of some of the AI tools I was using at the time. Now I find myself going, well, you know what? I want more pictures at config, for example. So I think the types when I say that, I want to create a scrapbook. So on Tuesday, I think we're going to potentially do some prompt comparisons. And we've got a couple products in mind. I may throw that out there, but I think there's another one that we're thinking about around clip recording.
Yeah.
What
Specifically, what we're talking about there, not to be vague or
Okay.
ambiguous, Tommy, I think would be really interesting live to put Bolt, Lovable, V0, and Replit all head to head with the exact same prompt and see what the output looks like. Because our assumption here, or maybe this is just me, but like I pretty much just feel like they're all building the same thing with minor differences. And it's the marketing that's going to win, and it's the community building that's going to win. And right now,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the most interesting stuff out of Bolt in that regard, right? So hopefully, I'm gonna go ahead and bias it. I'm gonna say I think Bolt's gonna win, but Replit's probably gonna be a strong contender as well.
Do you think Bolt needs to get into like the IDE part of entry points?
It's so hard. I don't know, man. I feel like we'd have to get Eric on the show and talk with him about that. I think that what Bolt is trying to do, and let's just do this. Unless somebody pays us otherwise, I'm just going to use Bolt as the name to talk about this whole category. So we're just going to
Okay.
use Bolt. So I'm going to say what Bolt is trying to do, and for everybody else as well, they're trying to make it so that anybody can build a simple application for themselves or even go a few steps beyond. I think they're trying to obfuscate the IDE layer. They're not trying to get you involved in like pages and pages of TypeScript and stuff like that. I would imagine that their view is that if you're having to do that, then we've failed at kind of our mission. We're not being a good enough layer on top of Claude, for example. So to me, that's the way they're approaching it.
I wonder if there's like, they just released, what was the feature? They just did some new UI updates. Now you can code or you can generate more well-designed landing pages, multi-page applications, and like SaaS dashboards. I think I haven't used it yet, and we will on Tuesday. I think better than what's currently out there. That's the promise, I believe. Is that the case?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm just kind of looking at all of this, and I'm thinking, if is the translation layer of good design, so whatever that means, whether that's a design tool that just turns everything into Tailwind utility, which it seems like a lot of things are doing.
Yep.
Is there benefit, do you think, in just owning that design translation layer? So you're still a wrapper, but like you're building in the rule sets and the different things that could you productize that? Could you be like, yeah, our design, our UI generation is powered by Bolt? Is that something you could see happen?
I don't know. I don't know that I would see something like that. Like our design generation is powered by Bolt, but maybe. I don't see why not. Because is Bolt going to go and build all the, minute design editor tools that I need? Probably not at that level of specificity and like getting into like mass and all the craziness that happens. Like, can you imagine doing like line drawings in Bolt or Lovable, for example? Right. I don't know, man, but here's what I want to get into. We got a Notion guy in the house.
Jason Ginsburg, what's up, dude? I am stoked to have you on. The question someone just posed, by the way, Jason Ginsburg, who, by the way, CTO of Skiff Privacy, also potential vibe coder. We call it sentiment coding over at Notion. Notion Mail. There's a story around that. Someone's asking here, why not AI versus old school coding?
Yeah,
Where do you
why
start?
not AI? I'm fully all in on vibe coding everything, or sorry, sentiment coding everything. I think it has completely transformed my life. Especially, I work a lot on the product side of things. It's just honestly, I feel like I just push the button and the rest is AI coded for me.
I love that, man.
Well,
So
since
go ahead,
well,
Hunter.
we got to get into it, Jason. Since you're in a car, what kind of car are you sitting in, and what are you doing in a car?
I am in a BMW M235i. I've had
Nice,
for a
nice.
long time now. Yeah, I was caught in some traffic and pulled over to do the interview, so hopefully that's all right.
Scrappy. I love
Hell
it.
yeah, I
Man.
like it. And you got a jacket on too. You,
Yep.
sir, are official. We like this.
Yeah, I'm
So
glad to impress, I guess.
I was just talking about this. All right. Now I want you to know where this show stands. Avid Notion user. It powers basically everything. Hunter, I'm working on him. I'm
I'm
working
not
on
a, I use Notion begrudgingly is the way
Yeah.
I put it. But I used to love Notion. I used to love Notion.
Ah, so there's a story in there. But what I'll say is this: I have tried to adopt Notion Calendar, and I do use it, but it's taken some compromise. And I've tried to adopt, now I'm coming from Superhuman, Notion Mail. And I don't know where I fall on it yet. I didn't like it the first time I tried it. I was playing around with it again this week. There are actually some nice things in there. I'll tell you right off the bat, the popover hover of seeing what's inside the email, not useful to me. I think I don't like it. So just put that in the user feedback bucket. But I as I started using it again, I'm like, wait a second. There are a lot of superhuman-esque behaviors in here that actually make this a little bit easier to adopt. And so I was like, okay, maybe second time around, which was actually how I started to fall in love with Notion in general, was my second time around. What are you excited about with Notion Mail, and like, where do you, and we'll get into how you built it, but where do you see that going?
I mean, I'm obviously very biased, but I'll say, I think what I've seen with a lot of just email products up until now is working within the paradigm of email, which is just so antiquated and frustrating. Obviously, email as a protocol has been around for like 40 years for good reason, but the product side has not caught up. And so what you see is a lot of, I think, the approaches have focused on just getting you to get through your inbox faster. But I think just the fact that it's one long never-ending list is just like a broken model. And so at least our ambition, we obviously have a lot to improve in Notion Mail, is to make it so that you don't even think about triaging emails anymore. You're not manually going one by one.
Yeah.
Sort of like Sisyphean task. It is set up for you. It's automated. It learns from your behavior, and it just happens in the background. And so it's not our version of email. It's actually more like your version of email. And, over time, it kind of is molded to your practices.
That's a bar. I like that. It's your version of email. It's got to be tough to try. Like if you think of a couple tools that are really hard to get people to replace, maybe browsers, inbox management, or email clients, right? Things like that. This has got to be so hard to first try to introduce, almost Trojan horse. Here's a familiar pattern. And then here's like the wave of how it's all going to completely change for you. Are you guys like thinking about a timeline around that? Or do you think that the interfacing with email will remain largely unchanged?
I totally agree. It's one of the challenges of building, I think, productivity software in general is just the expectations and bar for what you have are so high. People have decades of experience using these tools. And so even if we have great AI features in Notion Mail, most of our time has been spent getting like the compose to work correctly and indentation and like all the sort of editing features or other things that seem very table stakes. And so our approach to kind of make it so that you get the best of both worlds has been focused kind of similar to Notion on breaking email down to its building blocks. The idea is that if you have like the right primitives for how an inbox should work, then everyone can kind of recompose and have the configuration or settings that they want. So some people like a split inbox where they have the thread on the right and then they can just like click through things. Some people hate the previews. Some people like the previews. Some people want light mode, dark mode, but there's like a million other variations on just an email. And so having that sort of foundation hopefully makes it easier over time to allow people to adapt, and then they can integrate the sort of automations into that flow that they're used to and familiar with.
Every week, I have to send onboarding emails to the guests who call into this show. And every week it's at a different cadence at my convenience. I try to get it done when I can, but it's such a thing that it's like there's just a couple of like tokenized variables in here that change and everything else is largely unchanged. Why can't I do that with email and not have to think about that? Why can't I put in your email address? It searches some context, understands who you are. I give it 3 bullet points of anything it needs to know about the email, and then it just generates off of maybe a pre-built template. Why can't I do that yet?
Yeah, you should be able to do that. I mean, I think so much of email is like back and forth and just like, dear, so sincerely best, sorry, can't, and you just kind of want to get something done and have an action get to the conclusion. So we have like, Notion Mail was launched just, I guess, like a week or so ago. So it's very early. We have a couple features that hint at that sort of, we could go way further, but are things like snippets, which basically allow you to create email templates and then will automatically populate in the variables that you leave. We also have like the /schedule, which basically will look at your calendar. If you write, let's meet after, the weekend, suggest times, and then the person just clicks a link. But I think where we see this going is, yeah, you get to the point where basically you just click buttons to sort of get things done. We have like quick replies, but a super beefed up version of that where it's able to look at like your Notion knowledge base or sort of context and figure out much more, tailored or bespoke sort of responses than just what you might see currently, which are things that are like, sure, sounds good, or sort of trite.
Right. Yeah. Those things drive me crazy. So there's a question for you. Raya Lu says, I heard the story about vibe coding the entire Notion calendar view. What is this story? How true is this?
Yeah, I remember I showed Rio in a design crit at Notion. Just like this was the sort of point in using cursor where it clicked to me like, oh my god, everything has changed. Basically, this is like the feature I just described, which we call /schedule. It shows you like a calendar, suggests times. We had to rebuild basically Notion Calendar, a simplified version of it inside of Notion Mail. I had built at my previous company, Skiff, calendars before, so it's probably like the 4th or 5th time I had to build a calendar interface, and I was like, I don't want to do this again. And it was actually like the perfect sort of match because I knew the constraints or like the things I wanted. I know like, hey, I want this to be sort of formatted time zone. I want the scroll. Like I had the vocabulary and sort of the foreknowledge of where things could go wrong. But then the rest, I literally just completely did it via prompting. Obviously, I checked the code when the PR was open and, lots of lessons there. But it took like 6 hours. Whereas before, the fastest I was able to do something like that would be like maybe 2 weeks. It really just accelerated things so much.
Yeah. What models are you using, or what's your tool stack of choice for sentiment coding?
Yeah, I mean, I am always constantly trying new things. So for this was like months ago. I think it was like for the calendar, it was like Sonnet 3.7 or something. Now, in the past couple of weeks, I've changed to Gemini 2.5 Pro Max.
I'm hearing that, man. I'm hearing that everywhere.
I before did not like using the thinking models because they're too slow. My whole approach is I turn the settings so that I get minimal sort of explanation or response. I think the way to do is just iterate and like click until you get what you want. It's faster overall. And I think something's changed where the thinking model is fast enough where the benefit in terms of quality and its ability, especially to correct like, errors, lint errors, whatever it might be, and then get back on course was way better. And so that's been really helpful the past couple of weeks.
So are you using Gemini 2.5 to do any planning and have it propose solutions, or you're just like straight up, hey, don't explain shit to me, just like knock out code?
The latter. Yeah. I am not, I'll be honest, like it's maybe models my approach as an engineer. I think it would be different if I did more sort of systems engineering stuff on the back end. But like for me, building a product, there's so much detail and depth to the interaction side of things, the product side of things, that is where I'm digging into the weeds, and I know what I want as the outcome. And so I'm just iterating to get there. There are definitely times where I get stuck, and it's helpful, I've been coding for my whole life basically to know like, hey, this is probably where you're stuck, and like get things out of it. The other very specific bug, I guess, with that model is that sometimes it won't apply the changes. So I got to like get it back into that state. But otherwise,
Gemini sometimes doesn't apply changes.
Dude,
Yes.
Gemini tool call fails a lot that I've seen. Are you in Cursor or are you in Windsurf?
Cursor.
Why? Why Cursor over Windsurf?
I
What's your
Yeah,
reason?
I'll probably try windsurf more. I've heard good things. I think I've tried it once a while ago. I just started with Cursor, switching costs. It works for me. I'm not having issues with it. Two, the benefits I've heard from other engineers, this might not be true, is that Windsurf is better on a larger code base. For Notion Mail, we set up our own code base and everything's indexed, and so I've never had any issues with that. And so, perfectly happy continue to use Cursor.
Cool. And so my question here is like, as you're coding with Gemini, um, do you do any fun, quirky things with it to like, have it think about ways it's solving problems or ways that it communicates with you? Like what is that kind of prompting that you've done to fine tune the
Yeah.
responses you're getting?
So I forgot the exact name of the settings. I've like clicked a bunch of checkboxes in the Cursor settings to get it to be concise in its outputs. I haven't had much of like my own sort of like global prompt for everything in terms of engineering style. I think what I more developed is like learning just the quirks of these models, and I think specificity has been very helpful for me. Like learning how to basically use the app mention in a smart way and sort of have it on the sort of multi-file case, figure out how to jump around and do things, or being kind of strategic with like the copying and pasting basically of what parts of the code in a large file to help kind of focus it. That's basically it, though.
Because you guys have your established design systems and components and things like that, material that you got to work with. How did you make sure, like how easy was it to, we were just talking with Steve from builder.io and they're really trying to solve for the problem of like these larger code bases. You just plugged it right on top and just pulled a different branch and just immediately went to work on it?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, just the specifics of like Notion has Notion Calendar, Notion Mail now, and core Notion product. Each has their own code base. And so Notion Mail code base, we started from scratch, I guess, a year and a half ago. And so it's been able to, we have a design system, component library, everything. And like, it just figures it out. It has enough context from the file to know how to instantiate things from our component library. Working in Notion Next is a lot more difficult because that is like 15 years old and it's massive. In that case, it's like, yeah, that's where it gets harder, where it's just slower to index things or find the right stuff. And so you have to kind of work around those constraints or kind of be clever.
Well, man, I think it's cool. Like I said, I was talking about how Notion fosters a lot of culture of founders and brings them on. Did you just go in and they just immediately allow you to think up ideas and give you the resources to pursue them? How does it kind of work when they work with founder types?
Yeah, that was one of the greatest things about when we joined. I was worried, joining a larger company, is there going to be a big difference from, we're 15-person startup beforehand. Our whole team came over to Notion. We have all our desks next to each other, and it's felt exactly like a startup, and definitely has to do with their willingness to sort of let us kind of try things and set our own roadmap. And that's been really, really helpful. And then, the best of both worlds, as we've gone to the launch, that's when a lot of, more serious process needs to get involved, and we're able to leverage that. Whereas before, at Skiff, figuring out marketing, go to market and all that stuff, is difficult to do on top of the product side.
So what's next, man? What can you talk about, the initiatives that you're excited about or things you want to get to?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of just good old vanilla email stuff we have to support. So we're gonna have an iOS app soon. We're working on unified inbox. That's like been the #1 request. And then lots of ideas on just like how to make things more automated, all the things you suggested, making it so that, writing responses is more agentic and you're not, writing every single email yourself, basically.
Please. I can't wait for that, man. Jason, I appreciate you joining us, dude. I had seen the story from Rio. I thought it was sick. I love what you guys are doing over at Notion. I thought you'd be a great person to talk to for this. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back anytime, man.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
All right,
Awesome.
Jason.
Have fun getting back into traffic, buddy.
See you.
See you, man.
Oh, hold on. Let's address this. I saw you, Adrian, and I got this for you, okay? Is this a bro show? I just realized you only had male guests. Keenly aware of this. Kind of turning into that because of that fact, but not intentionally, because we've certainly put out requests for all sorts of guests, and we are a little bit kind of at the mercy of who has availability.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. So Tommy does a fantastic job of reaching out to people via DMs, and we kind of just slot people on based on availability. We're like, hey, we go live Tuesdays and Fridays. Fridays we typically have guests. If you can make it, you can make it. And guys, guess what? Whoever can make that slot, that's who's going to come on the show. We're not going to go out of our way to try and pander to get a specific blend of things. It's just going to kind of come based on availability.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's a fair question, like representation and thinking about stuff like that. But you guys are giving us way too much credit if you think that we have the capacity to be good at any of that. Are you kidding me? Like, what fucking show are you tuning into, Adrian?
Well, yeah. What show? And Adrian, dude, we gotta get you to calm down, man. I feel like I roasted you the other week and it didn't hit home. Like, just chill out, bud. Just chill out. I want to talk about this real quick though, because this is super interesting. So Kyle, I'm gonna pick on you real quick.
Ooh.
Kyle said, yeah, that's true. I'm not willing to pay 30 cents every call from O3, but it is true what he's referring to. Klaus said, I saw Cursor employees saying O3 for thinking and Gemini 2.5 Pro for implementation, but I'm just using GPT 4.1 for free. I would look at it this way, guys. Like, you got to think about this. You're paying 30 cents to get like O3, which is CTO level insights and knowledge, kind of come through and reason a big hairy problem in your code base, right? So I would look at it this way. 30 cents gets you insane super intelligence to reason through a problem, and then normal tool calls to follow. Ideally, hopefully, you had it write you an implementation plan, and then you have Gemini 2.5 Pro to implement that. Right? In that regard, that 30 cents is worth every penny, right? And we are only talking about pennies. So I'd recommend that you kind of try that out. It's not something you're going to be stacking up left and right, but a few times a day to, have O3 high reasoning break down like a big feature for you. Like I would write the PRD in ChatGPT. I'd put that in Cursor or Windsurf, whatever it is. I would then have O3 high reasoning break it apart into smaller features or components based on the context of your code base. And then I would swap over and have Gemini 2.5 Pro execute on that implementation plan. I think that's going to save you a lot of headache.
Klaus says, teach us how, Hunter. That's where we fail. Show us the way.
Anytime.
Well, and listen, you're going to see a little bit of that. We do, and I think we've done a decent job at trying to show you guys how we're working. We're going to continue to lean into that and show some more things, because the truth is, like, there's the I've spent all this time packaging however I'm building something into a way that's consumable, in a way that you can follow along. But the reality is, if you look at back a house of me just working without witness, it's messy. It is so messy. Some of this, like, you have to make time for a little bit of R&D. You go down a path, and then you kind of pivot out of that path into another one as you're trying to accomplish a thing. I really liked what Jason was saying about the fact that, like, sometimes you're just like, shut up and do. Like, I don't want this thing to tell me what it's thinking. I just need you to get to the end thing so I can iterate on the thing that you're about to produce. And dude, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of messy, yesterday, I literally got frustrated. I deleted about a week and a half's worth of work. Now, I don't mean like week and a half of heads down work, but like all the code that had been created over a week and a half in my free time, I just deleted it. I rolled it back. I checked out a commit from a week and a half prior. And I was like, okay, hold on. Over the last week and a half, I did X, Y, and Z. Here's what I learned from it. I literally just option tab, told Whisperflow what I needed, dictated that shit right into Windsurf. I recreated all of that work and got back to where I wanted to be in a more stable place in like 45 minutes.
Yes. That's a crazy, I've had the exact same realization, and I went through that cycle. There needs to be a name for that cycle, because it starts at the pit of despair and then it turns into something useful. And that's the difference. That is the difference. You can go down the pit of despair, and then you can call it and just say, I'm going to start over. I'm going to do a different thing. The part you mentioned about saying, this is what we tried, this is what we learned, that I took that over to a couple of projects and the same thing. Huge, man. Huge help there.
You want to know one of the biggest hacks that I've learned, and it wasn't until reasonably recently that I started doing this. Hopefully you can see my screen here.
Yep.
So I have a devlog every day, and sometimes I'll clear it out. But I have a devlog to where I say, hey, like whatever we've done today, whatever we're working on currently, all the context of our conversation, any problems that we're running into, I want you to capture that. I have a little recast snippet for this. Capture that, write a devlog, explore solutions based on a web search, and make it super clear for me that tomorrow when I pick this code base back up, I know exactly where I'm at and what I'm doing. And this has been just huge. I think too, like people should never shy away from being like, yo, windsurf or cursor. Just pause for a second. I want you to do a web search, use everything you know and your knowledge about like best practices for documentation. And then keep in mind that I am like one person or I'm two people working on this code base. So I don't want overkill. I want you to go through and like rethink our documentation based on the context of the code base.
Yeah.
And it will do an amazing job to go through and just refactor things and clean shit up.
You're getting some requests here, and I think these are pretty interesting. And so this is a little bit of how we're going to evolve Tuesdays, I think, where Fridays we have a lot to say, a lot of folks to have on, and Tuesdays I probably anticipate that continuing to evolve and have fun with. But one of the things I'd love to see is just a little bit of a deeper dive into the real ways that we're using stuff.
I think that's I think that's a really important piece of content that's missing right now.
Yeah.
Like we like Riley Brown, both Tommy and I like a lot of the stuff that Riley's doing. He's doing some interesting stuff, but everything that he's doing from what I've seen, and this is going to be a surface level comment, so maybe I'm wrong. Okay. But everything he's doing is like, hey, let me run this quick experiment. It's all very, very beginner knowledge of like, let me just vibe code into this thing and I'm going to go from 0 to 1 within X amount of time. But it's like, okay, cool. But like, you're just making the same video in 10 different flavors,
Right.
or shout out Devin Fountain, 23 flavors of Dr. Pepper, baby. Whereas it's like, I want you to start with one project and I want to actually see you go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 and like take us on the whole journey. Share us everything that you've learned, because there are super, super important things where it's like, oh shit, like I fucking cracked the code. This is crushing it. Like I made all this progress. And then, you'll be like, oh wait, I fucked all this up. I need to delete a week and a half's worth of work. You should show that, you know? So I want to do a better job myself of creating that content. So I'm working on that. I'm gonna do a lot more live streams. I'm gonna do a lot more YouTube stuff there, starting top of May. And Tommy and I are going to be doing a lot more experiments live on Tuesdays as well.
A lot of stuff to show you guys. I can't wait to do a retro on the UX tools lessons learned, going from vibe coding to getting more intentional on a few things. Expect that. I do want to call out Build Wars is a lot of fun, guys. I love Build Wars. We have the hardest part of Build Wars. Listen, I've competed on shows similar. Asking anybody to perform in front of an audience this large of their own like skill set is not an easy sell. It doesn't matter how good you are. It takes a certain kind of toughness to be willing to try and do work in a way that you don't do work. No one sits there for 45 minutes to cram through a thing with people watching them. That is not a natural way of anything happening. So we are. I'm so stoked that this one's looking good. We'll have details for you. I like this dancing we're doing, and expect that probably next week. But I think we're gonna aim for like 3 more of these this year at minimum, right?
At minimum. I got a couple thoughts on that, and then questions for the audience on the Build Wars topic. So I've seen a lot of really good suggestions of people being like, yeah, we should get this person, that person. We've talked to a lot of people, and to just be honest with you, a lot of people are not interested in doing it. They're just a little gun shy, and they're like, I don't know that I want to.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I don't blame you either. Like, I don't know that I want to I don't want to lose. That's the fear that people have, right? They don't want to step into the ring and potentially lose. And transparently, like we're seeing some of that with Brett. even with Bolt, he's like, well, based on what I learned, like I don't know. So what Tommy and I are focused on is making sure that we're able to put together really interesting showdowns, but also just transparently, like they got to be heavy hitters with an audience. We're not trying to do build wars with nobodies because it takes us a ton of time to set that up, to officiate it, to just like really bring the quality there. So we're trying to get the right people, still having some conversations to talk some interesting people into it. But
And
that said, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and the thing that excites me, it is a bit of like, yeah, can you bring some help to the table with, you know, a little bit of an audience or something like that? But the other side too is like, what skill set have you built a reputation around that would actually be really sick for people to get a glance at on how you work? And like, just like you guys were saying, like, Hunter, we want to see how you're doing this. That's my favorite part of Build Wars. Yes, we're answering some philosophical questions about, you know, where does this stand up against this? But the other side is like, in this comically compressed conditions, how does process from these heavy hitters evolve? And that part to me is like where the real story is. I like that.
For sure. For sure. I think that's true. We would love if you have any feedback from the last Build Wars and what you would be looking to see if hypothetically Brett went toe to toe with Bolt, Brett with Lovable, Bolt with Bolt. Please share it. I think one thing that we would do, it would be longer. So it would be 45 minutes. It would be an hour. We'd clean up some of the rules and things like that there. But yeah, man, excited to see any feedback that you guys have.
And yeah, make a theme song, dude. Brett, I think, is demanding walkout music this time. So,
Yeah.
you know, we'll have it. We'll have it. Throwback Build Wars idea. Get some OG designers to face off creating a landing page in Photoshop CS4 and Dreamweaver. Photoshop CS4 versus Dreamweaver. Let's go. Right? I think that's where we're at.
Lee says, what about removing the competitive aspect and make it more like live lectures, educational? Perhaps more people will be inclined to participate. Everybody's doing that, man. You can throw a rock and find somebody doing stuff like that. It's just, I don't think that's our energy is not tuned for that. I think for that, like, you know, Rid's doing a lot of interesting stuff there. I think Tommy and I are a little bit more chaotic.
There's an element, listen, there's a meta element to all of this where it's like, how do we surface really good messages or things we can expose and make good TV? And you have to balance both. Otherwise, the messages we want to get out just won't go as far. So there is a part of that. It's like, is this also good TV? And we're learning it. We're learning it, man. It's a good suggestion.
Adrian says, I'm not sure I agree with the nobody part. There can be nobodies in a fucking force of nature in Webflow, for example.
For sure.
Sure. There's tons of savants out there, but nobody's heard of them and nobody's going to watch.
Good TV. I go back to the good TV statement. It's a price of doing business in this format. And listen, here's the goal is this, where if you guys get enough value from it and it's entertaining enough, it opens the doors for those situations. That's what we want to get to. 100%. Yeah, bring it. We need the adrenaline, and it's heavy. All right, so Tuesday, we will see you here. We're going to go over some contests. So, well, let's figure this out real quick, Hunter. What tools are you bringing to the table on Tuesday for this prompt competition?
So I propose that I use the two that I'm most comfortable with. So I would bring probably Bolt and Replit because I've got the most reps in there. And I know you have a lot of reps in Lovable.
Yeah.
And I think V0 too.
V0 was my first starter. Lovable's where I was living. And so, yeah, I think that makes sense. So, okay. All right. Unofficially, we've got our teams. Yeah. We'll have our prompt.
And so what we're going to do, Bolt and Replit from me. Tommy's going to have Lovable and V0. We're going to feed it the same prompt. I think it's really important, Tommy. We'll have to maybe see what the generation is, but I would say that we probably want to give ourselves a rubric of like, hey, we're not going to do just a one shot, although we're certainly going to get points for one shot, but we're going to do like no more than 10 prompts, but each one has to be the same. So we have to give the same feedback to every tool. We can't like,
Well,
give
that
different
gets see,
feedback.
this is where that gets messy because I mean the feedback can't be the same. What if someone gets something right and the other's like it's not even functional? And what do you do then?
It has to be in the same like realm, right?
Like the finessing a particular part, feature, or something, right?
Yes,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it'll be good. Topic: build the release notes landing page. No, we're going to be building a product for release notes. I'll tell you what it is. Um, uh, Tommy and I are trying to get much more organized, and so I had this idea. I said, "Look, I got two thoughts. One, let's lock in like 10 potential topics. Sometimes that number might include guests, but 10 potential topics for each episode, and let's be able to say, hey, the show has started, the timer started. And if there's a segment we like or somebody said something interesting, we can just click a button, it'll timestamp it and we can clip it. So we're going to build our own like clipping tool for the show to make sure that while our dumbasses are sitting here, we're making editors' lives easier. So you see more of our ugly faces all over social media.
See, he wants to make this like wonderful utility tool for us. I'm probably going to take it, spin it on its head, make it so you guys can clip it, and then completely fuck with how the video looks so you control us. That is how our brains work. He's productive. He actually makes money, and I just burn shit to the ground. So we're a good match.
All right. Perfect.
Good show. Hey guys, we appreciate you being here. We can't promise it's going to be any better next time, but we will be here in full form on Tuesday.
Awesome.
We'll see you then.
See you guys.